It's been a while. Today is Voss Day, March 5th, representing the hardness for the main character for Houseki no Kuni. I recently did a panel on Buddhism in Anime and Manga for Katsucon 2026 in the middle of February. Here is the full unedited version of it. This panel took place on the first day of Katsucon, on a Friday. It's not really on Land of the Lustrous, really, and a lot of the series that I talk about, I think I applied, and this was my first panel, so I applied for the panel position end of maybe October, November, got accepted in December, and then didn't work on it until quite literally the days before the convention itself. So, like I mentioned in the actual panel itself, hopefully you learned something about Buddhism. I've specifically not talked about Buddhism stuff in the past couple of years that I've done Houseki no Kuni. So you could treat this as kind of like a prelude, just talking about some more broad topics. And I would love any feedback on information that I got incorrectly or correctly. And the fact is, maybe you learned something. Maybe you check out a couple of these series if you want. Some of them are very popular, so you've probably already checked them out. But yeah, I dressed up as Congo. I tried to put a ball cap on. It looked ugly, and then I took it off. So I at least put the robe on. Again, this is my third time putting that robe on. Once I had the full hair and beard. Once I had bald head and no beard. And then this time it's going to be head, hair, and no beard. So maybe I'll do it again with a proper ball cap. We'll see when that actually happens. My co-panelist, Jules, was one of the variations, the moon version of it. So you'll see it in the corner. A lot of people recognized Jules in their fit, said they loved Houseki no Kuni. Not many people recognize me, but that's understandable. But anyways, I will be back for actual videos, hopefully later this month. Enjoy.
If that has a disk write error, you can stab me in the neck.
It's okay. Not the end of the world.
It was having issues.
Reading?
Weirdly. No, it like reading, like writing it to the card for some reason. I just heard my fucking name for a second. What time is it? It's time. Yeah?
You should care because this is a belief that there's a cat that filter fire puts on the trickster. So these little things to mess with your house, like putting things in the wrong place or turning things over. But he also wants your fire to stay warm because he wants to sleep by it.
Let me check it again. Let me check it again.
Sure.
It's making me nervous. Okay.
Testing. Can you guys hear me in the back? Perfect.
No, we can't.
Awesome. Hello. My name is Shamuka. I go by Inspirashamul online. It's like a pun on inspirational, but with Shamu, the first part of my name. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jules. I'm his sidekick. I'm his cosplay buddy. So I'm here today. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see everyone here. So we're going to talk a little bit about Buddhism, a little bit of history, and hopefully everyone will learn one thing today. Unless you're an expert, then you should teach me as well, because I'm not Buddhist by nature, but I've dabbled a little bit in there. Are you good? Yeah, we're good. Thank you so much. But yeah.
Good?
Let's get started.
He's a monk in training, as you can see.
Yeah, I tried to put on the ball cap today. It would not stay on.
Yeah, a little chopped.
Little chopped. But yeah, the origins start in India. with Siddhartha Gautama, the awakened one. This was a prince in the 500s BCE in northern India, I believe, and this person lived a very privileged life. He was son of a king, had a great wife, had a great son, didn't really need to ask for anything that wasn't hard to get for him, yet all around him, he noticed that people were suffering. And whether he felt that or not, he felt that that was unfair. So what he did was he would travel around because he's allowed to, because he's a prince, he can go wherever he wants, no one's really questioning him, and went to the holy people that were currently practicing in the area. It would be Hinduism at this time. And he asked them, and he observed them and followed them around, and he noticed that a lot of them were doing a little too much self-denial. They would go without eating for weeks on end, and when he tried to follow that as well, he almost starved to death, and he was just like, okay, I've lived from a life with too much luxury, and having too much of nothing is also not good. So Gautama wanted to find a middle ground on it, so the middle path, so something that's not too much, something that's not too little, something that's just right. And what he did was he sat under a Bodhi tree, as depicted here. Bodhi tree in general is rejuvenating, full of life, and he wanted to sit on it. Another thing is he's under a lotus leaf, which is a lotus plant itself grows from under mud and comes up and supplies oxygen down to its roots. So a lotus tree is also revitalizing, very rejuvenating, rebirth in a kind of way. So what Gautama did was he sat there and went through a lot of spiritual obstacles in a kind of way, and after that he reached a state of sadami, or complete concentration, which was the first step of trying to go towards what he ended up going into nirvana, or enlightenment, where the feelings of suffering, the feelings of pain that he noticed around people, it just kind of went away. And that kind of went away was something that only he could have done, and that he did during this kind of meditation process of full concentration. And then he decided to not stay there, because if he was the only one that could be free from the cycle of suffering, it would be unfair. And what he chose to do, and what we call the term of a bodhisattva, is someone that has reached this state of enlightenment, but chooses to stay behind and guide others. And that's what makes Buddha kind of special, and the name Buddha is the awakened one, or awakened one in this case, where he's able to go to this state of not really bliss, but just of existence, of peace, of wisdom and whatnot. In theory, anyone can be a Buddha, but the fact that Gautama decided to stay behind and taught for almost 45 years after he taught it to his wife, he taught it to his sons, and he had plenty of disciples. And throughout some of the examples that we go over today, a lot of his disciples also learned from him, or some variant of that, because even to this day, hundreds of years later, people still practice Buddhism in one way or the other, whether they're like part of the religion or just follow certain aspects of Buddhism itself. So there are three main branches of Buddhism. We have the Mahayana, we have the Vajrayana, and the Theravada. There are three different versions, and it's kind of really tied to which region of the world. One is mainly centered around India, one is centered around Southeast Asia, and then the rest is China all the way up to Japan. The two main prevalent ones are the Mahayana and the Theravada. And as you can see in some of the regions, we have Nepal, we have China, Japan, Korea. That's the main one that we'll be talking about today, because that's where we're going into with Japanese culture and Japanese media. But there are other different variations for it. All of them center around the Four Noble Truths. And I've listed some of them here. That was a sword, okay.
One of the truths.
Everything is based on the Four Noble Truths. One is the truth of suffering. That is the term samsara, where everyone, as long as we exist, is in a state of suffering, whether that's physical, mental, temporary, and whatnot. And we all go through it, and there's really no way around it, because as we exist with human beings, one day we're all going to die, we're all going to pass on. But the act of living itself is a form of suffering, and that's okay. That's our normal state, right? And the issue with the type of suffering that we have is that we seek desire, we seek any kind of connection with other things, feelings, people, and experiences. These are all temporary because they satisfy us in the moment, but it's not a consistent thing. And that's why the concept of like being happy or having happiness is tied intrinsically with suffering, because if you don't have true highs, can you have true lows, and vice versa, right? So it's a little bit of everything. But breaking out of this cycle is what you would take to become enlightened, where even your highs don't feel super high and even your lows don't feel super low as well. So that's the first. The first is that everyone is suffering, and being able to acknowledge that is the first step towards enlightenment. And samsara isn't really a place, right? Because people can suffer or people can exist in any point. So it's more of a state of mind or state of being. Once you recognize this and you're kind of fed up with chasing after these cravings of desire, or chasing after these cravings of whatnot, that's the first step. The second noble truth is the truth of the origin of suffering. What is the reality of suffering? In this case, it's just recognizing that it's our actions and our perception of that thing. Actions in this case is what the term is karma. Things that we do, if we do good, then we get good karma built up. If we do things bad, we have bad karma built up and we get consequences of that thing. If you lie to someone, chances are somewhere down the line, something equal or maybe worse might happen to you, and that's just the balance of it. So the way that we perceive us and then the way that we carry ourselves in the world. So that is the second, that's the origin of suffering. Then how do we break out of this cycle, right? How do we end this causes of suffering? And that is wanting to have full, complete freedom from ignorance, from attachment to things. I mean, we here in the West are what we call very materialistic. I mean, even coming to an anime convention, to go to the artist alley and go to the merchant hall and purchase trinkets, anything that we want, that is all materialistic, and that is attachment to these characters, attachment to this thing. It's not bad in moderation. Anything is okay in moderation, but excessiveness leads to longing for that when you're not thinking about it, and it could have negative effects throughout. And I'm sure each and every one of you at some point in your life has had dealt with having excess of something, and what the consequences of that excess, whether it's eating too much in one sitting, or playing too long on that video game or whatnot, or watching too much anime, as many of us have done. A way to end this can't just be just turning your mind off, right? That's not really how it works. We can't just turn it off, but making ourselves dull. So what is it? Through practice and discipline. There's a state of peace where the suffering and the emotions don't arise again, and I can't tell you that I'm enlightened in any kind of way, but through enough practice, through the teachings of what Buddha has said, if you do this consistently throughout a long period of time, maybe you can make yourself enlightened in a kind of way, or have peace with your life in any sort of way. And the path of that, true effort and whatnot, and all the different sects of Buddhism that there are, everyone has different options. There's not one path for each one of us, so that is the fourth one, the truth of path. So all these variations, these are just the three main sects, or I guess like branches of Buddhism. They each focus on different things. In the case for Mahayana, it's all about applying anecdotes. So let's go into more about Japanese Buddhism. So of course, it started in northern India around the 5th century BCE. And the biggest way that it moved up is actually through the Silk Road, because it's a great connection of just trade and traffic of whatnot. So people are moving around, people are going, so they're talking about, oh, like this guy like in India is like talking about this stuff, like he's changing people's lives, like what's going on? So the news spreads as merchants come into town, go to different places. So it spreads from India all the way up to China, and from China it gets into Japan. And it takes about like 100 years, right? So like if Buddha or Gautama started it in the 5th century BCE, by the time it gets to Japan, it's already like 500 AD or CE, depending on your name of historical dates. A good portion of Japanese, even to this particular date, aren't classified or don't classify themselves in like a membership of religion, but it permeates every aspect of their culture. One of the examples in our place here in America is like, even if you're not Christian, you're most likely going to celebrate Christmas or winter holidays of some sort, because everyone is celebrating like it's a holiday, it's a break. Whether you're in other religion, like in America, it makes sense. Something like Halloween at the end of October, that's even in Japan and other places in the world because it's a celebration of costumes and a Day of the Dead and whatnot, but it transcends that across the world. So these things aren't really tied to the religion anymore, but you can still practice the principles that go around it. And a lot of the Japanese individuals or people, they believe that, I do practice things that are Buddhist or whatever sect, but not necessarily am considering myself as a Buddhist. Similarly, the indigenous religion in Japan is Shintoism, with the shrines and whatnot. A lot of them are spread all throughout the country of Japan. When I was in Japan like a couple years ago, I went to the Inari Shrine, which is 1,000 torii gates, and that's the conifers. You're passing through the gates, you're letting go of your attachment in a kind of way. Shintoism and Buddhism can coexist, and they do. When it first entered Japan in the 500s, the people accepted both of them to be true. So there wasn't necessarily a term of fusion between Shintoism and Buddhism. They're very similar, but what would happen is, let's say there was a torii gate or a shrine in one location, they would set up a Buddhist temple right next to it, or vice versa. There was a Buddhist temple here, this is a place of worship or a place of study, let's set up some torii gates there as well. So they're intrinsically linked to each other, but they're not exclusively the same thing. Yeah, okay. So there's many different sects of Buddhism, even within Japan. As I listed, there's 13 Buddhist schools and 65 different variations within those schools. Some of the popular ones are a few that I listed. Zen Buddhism might ring a bell because it's 3 letters and it rolls off the tongue, so it's pretty easy. Another one is called Pure Land Buddhism. Those are one of the popular ones, but I listed a couple of others here as well. Zen Buddhism in general was developed in China during the Tang Dynasty, and it emphasized rigorous meditation practices. So it's a very physical, daily, hands-on, it wasn't really knowing the knowledge of the practices of the Four Noble Truths or whatnot, but it's daily meditation, going with your master and discussing different ways of letting go, or discussing I saw suffering here. It was a daily practice, and that's what Zen Buddhism focuses heavily on, while other versions are a little different. Pure Land has 2 different variations of its own. One is called Jodo Shu, and then the other one that I listed here is Jodo Shinshu. One of them was spread by a guy named Hoen, and then the other one is spread by another guy named Shinran. And we'll talk a little bit of it, but the main thing is there's this phrase in Buddhism you might have heard it in some of your anime. It's Nami Amida Butsu, or sometimes it gets shortened down to Namu Amida Bu, or Nambutsu. So it goes by very different variations, and the way that you interpret it or the way that you pick apart each of the words changes how you interpret it as well. Where was I? Oh, okay. So the 2 different versions of the Pure Land Buddhism that I was talking about, one of them is saying that the variation of what Nami Amida Butsu stands for is that you are helpless, so you have to rely on someone else to pray for you. So we are helpless by nature. We need someone else, maybe someone that's already enlightened, maybe someone of a higher power than us, to save us from our suffering. While the other variation is the fact that you're invoking this type of prayer, you are being saved because you're doing that, because you believe in this statement. the easiest part about this panel is there's so many anime that talk about Buddhism. I'm sure many of your favorite ones have it, and either you've realized it, you've seen someone wear a monk outfit, you've seen someone wear the little staff that has like chains on it. That's generally used, that little staff is used to ward off animals and whatnot, like shepherds kind of have a variation of that. And it gets transcribed into anime, like Inuyasha, Dragon Ball, you know, Rebirth as a whole. So I'm gonna talk about a couple of my favorite anime and maybe put you guys on, but I'm sure we can have a discussion on it. But we gotta start from the beginning. The father of manga, Osamu Tezuka. He had a series called Buddha. What I really like about this is if you look at the spine, I mean, it just shows the progression of Buddha all the way through, and Dragon Ball also has a variation of it with, I think, the Vizbigs that have the entire, like, Goku, like,
sort of like the arc.
the arc of him like
He
flying
grows and
around.
such, yeah.
So very similar inspiration of there. So this is 66 chapters across 8 volumes. This happened a little later in Tezuka's career. I mean, Tezuka was a prolific manga artist, and a lot of his mannerisms are still seen today in a kind of way. This one I would consider is more of a historical fiction. It is very quirky, as in the humor that is in Buddha is very interesting. People that might have not read some of the older manga would read it today. You might be offended, and that's okay, because it was made at a different time. You know, the standards of manga have changed compared to even maybe 10, 20 years ago. Osamu Tezuka did this back in like the 70s and 80s, so it was a way, way earlier. And his stances are facial expressions. And some of these images that I picked is actually a different artist. His name is Hakuen Ekaku. He was a Zen Buddhist artist all the way in the Edo period, so well before Tezuka created manga. And the way that he drew these caricatures are very cartoonish as well. Of these masters, of these people that are enlightened, he would make like interesting facial expressions with these strokes. And because it is tied to Zen Buddhism as a whole is pretty self-deprecating in how they depict the tales of Buddha and their principles. They would have like stick humor and whatnot, and Tezuka kind of embodied that as well. You know, he's using humor, however, he's still trying to create a emotional conveying of that message of what he wants, whether it's like taking care of your loved ones, or like, oh, like you should not be, you know, beating people up just on the streets. You know, there's very, very many stories. Like one of the first, like the first chapter of Buddha is there's a character and he's getting like straight up pissed on by these characters, and like they have to learn like, hey, like that's not okay, you can't be doing that in public, like what are we doing here, you know? So even though that it's not that serious and whatnot, there's still an emotional undertone for it. And the best way to approach this manga, if you do end up trying to pick it up, is that it's using humor and fiction to tell a compelling story, which many stories do that as well. A similar one in vein is a much more recent one, is Saint Yomen. So Buddha and Jesus are roommates in Tokyo in modern day. So the manga came out in 2006. I believe there is an adaptation for it.
There is, yeah.
And it's the same sort of like humor and whatnot. I mean, as you can see, Buddha is very zen and very calm while on a roller coaster, and not, you know, the highs and lows quite physically are not affecting him, and that's used as the blunt of the joke. This is a very slice of life, so each chapter is just, oh, like we're here in the Tokyo Tower, just hanging out, you know, helping someone pick up a cat or whatnot. So again, very lighthearted, and it goes to show that even if it's tied in religion or tied in whatnot, you can tell stories in a kind of way that still convey, you know, like life goes on. There's humor and happiness in everything that we do. Now, on the other side, we can get very philosophical and very deep in our analysis, where it comes to, if you haven't heard of HunterxHunter or Yu Yu Hakusho, Yoshihiro Togashi is a well-known name. I believe I was here last year at Katsucon, and there was a Hunter x Hunter like cosplay. I don't think there was one today or whatnot. I didn't see any, but yeah, the most, I guess, easiest example that we can pick of is Netero, who's the chairman of the association, the Hunter Association. If you haven't seen the anime, and I'm not going to go into too many spoilers here or anything, but he is very strong. He's a very strong individual. He is at the top of the world in his world, and some of the main characters, Gon, Killua, Kurapika, and Leorio, you know, they all meet Netero, and they see him as just this decrepit old man, just like on a boat.
Dressed very monkish.
Dressed very, very monkish, you know. He still has some hair, so he's not the same as, you know, some of the other monks that are full shaved, but he's very strong. And once you get later into the anime, you see how Netero becomes the way he is. Specifically, this is from the Chimera Ant arc, which happens, I don't even remember what episode, but
It's like 80-something, 90-something.
yeah. And Netero becomes one of the main characters in this kind of way, where he has to take on some of the big bad villain or whatnot, as depicted here. And you see that the way that he learns to develop his nen and his ability is a bodhisattva, and it's actually tied to a specific bodhisattva. In Japanese, it's called Kanan-sama, and in Chinese, it's called, I mean, I've been butchering these names the entire night, but, you know, it is what it is. Gaonin, and this is a golden statue in a kind of way, and it has 1,000 arms. So you might have seen some kind of depiction where someone has way too many arms, and it's not AI, you know, like the extra finger, like it's not that. It's like intentional that this person has 1,000 arms. And the reason behind this bodhisattva and why they have so many is that because everyone is suffering so much, they want to give a helping hand to as many people as possible, so they develop 1,000 arms to have a hand out to whatnot. Now, Netero uses it in a very completely different way, and Togashi uses that as a critique because humanity can be very bad and very sinful, yet sacrificial, which on both sides are tenets of Buddhism. Another way, this is for post-anime stuff, there's a Journey of the West, which is an actual documentation of someone traveling from China into India, trying to figure out, like, oh, what are the origins of Buddhism and whatnot. And Togashi uses this for the current arc that's in the manga. It's called the Succession Arc, or Dark Continent, and plays around it in many different ways on, like, you know, the curiosity of humanity and how, because there's a chances of there's too much curiosity, what are the consequences of that across humanity's kind of way. And in this case, it is an individual that kind of looks like Gon, but it isn't Gon. Now, again, this is a very overt example for Hunter x Hunter. I'm sure if you've seen this show, you can think of so many different examples in the kind of way. I mean, Kurapika as a character is very revengeful, and his arc, whether it's in the anime, whether it's in the manga, could have a sense of rebirth or whatnot. Even the Chimera Ant arc is filled with rebirth, and the most current arc right now, which is called the Succession War, talks about post-Nen like activation, and that is also another form of rebirth that Togashi uses to his thing. I haven't read or watched Yu Yu Hakusho, but I'm sure he has plenty of parallels that he's drawing from there into his current work right now. Heike Monogatari is the next one. This was directed by Naoko Yamada, who was in Kyoto Animation, but now is working in tandem with Science Saru. She has another work that's coming out later this year, tied to Mongols, I believe. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I saw a trailer for it. But in 2021, she directed Heike Monogatari. And this is a story, more of a fictional story behind it, but it's a girl and her adoptive father. They're very poor, they're walking around, and this evil clan that's like super powerful and whatnot, they're called the Heike clan. They kind of slaughter the blind old man, the father, because he looked at them the wrong way. And he didn't know because he was blind. But they adopt Biwa, who is the main character, and she can see into the future. So she follows the trajectory of these evil, terrible people that abuse their power and this Buddhism and whatnot is tied significantly for it. There's a character that recites the phrase that we talked about, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, over and over again while he's going into the water to sacrifice himself because there's a power struggle. So definitely a beautiful and definitely very intrinsically tied to Buddhism in a kind of way, because a lot of sacrifice has to be made for other people to survive, whether it's your family or whatnot. So another great pick. Different one is Kyousogiga. This was directed by Rei Matsumoto. I believe this came out in 2011 to 2013. There were different variations of it. Kyousogiga is very tied to Kyoto as a city. It celebrates Kyoto as a city, and Kyoto has a lot of Buddhism. This temple, or this shot right here that you see with two different windows, is an actual location in Kyoto called the Gengyon Temple. And it asks a question for anyone that visits this on site. If you go to Tokyo, if you end up being near this temple in a kind of way, if you look out of this temple, you see the same, look out of these windows, you see the same garden. There's just one garden. One is you're looking through a circular one, and one you're looking through a square window, all right? Apparently one of these is the window of confusion, and the other one is the window of enlightenment. So if you go, you're supposed to tell the difference between it. You see the same exact image. You see the same exact garden, because you can literally walk a couple feet one way or the other. But the fact that this is visually trying to show the perception of changing oneself. You're not actually changing anything about your eyesight or anything. You're just changing the way that you're thinking of seeing the garden. Kyousogiga as a whole, the guy on the left pretends to be a priest, seems to be a priest, wears the robes of a priest, but is scandalous and plays around with women and lives in a city that doesn't mature. It is stagnant. So this city is tied to this person of letting go and facing the trauma within him, and that's his way of reaching nirvana or reaching samsara. Another series that's very tied to Kyoto as a whole is the Eccentric family by Morimi. He also did one of my favorite anime, Tatami Galaxy, if you've heard of either of them. I believe Tatami Galaxy came out in 2010. Eccentric family has 2 seasons. One of them came out in 2017. I don't remember when the second season. 2013 and 2017. A lot of the characters in this series are bodhisattvas that are existing. Ben 10 is a version of Saraswati, which is a goddess of education and luck in Buddhism, but is known as Ben 10 in Japanese culture, and is like luck and whatnot. Another name for them is Ibisu, which is also a goddess of luck. So if you've seen like Noragami or any of these other shows that use these enlightened people as gods, they are gods, they're divine, holy, they give guidance to a kind of way. One of the lines that the main character, he's a tanuki, he's a raccoon that can shapeshift into a human person. He says that his father and the type of people that they are have fool's blood in them, or idiot blood, because they get caught up in the moment and kind of sacrifice themselves for others and not for their own good. And that affects the rest of the family in this case. So he thinks, the main character thinks he also has fool's blood, and that's just the way of a tanuki. But in Buddhism, everyone is foolish. We are all considered foolish beings in a kind of way because we have suffering. So the kind of way that this is used is saying no, idiot's blood or fool's blood, that's just the nature of it. What can we do in the day-to-day in kind of way? The author loves exploring Kyoto, and one of the big festivals that happens in the middle of August in Kyoto is the Gyozen Okaribi, also known as the Daimonji Festival. It's a fire festival that happens at the end of the Obon season. And Obon is a very Buddhist culture, but like I was talking about with Christmas or like the winter holidays, it's very similar here in Japan, where this is a way of Japanese people to kind of pray honor for their ancestors or their loved ones that have passed away. So the fire festival is that final celebration of life that's currently existing while giving back to them. A lot of series have this fire festival. If you see this little fire symbol in the background with the mountain, that's usually depicting the Daimonji festival. Other ways that it's shown is like in March comes in like a lion. They just light a little match in their home at the end of it to pray for their deceased family members or people in past ways. I went to Japan 2 years ago just to see this fire festival because it has such a significance for the author himself, who's one of my favorites. Definitely check it out in a kind of way. So Jujutsu Kaisen, pretty popular series, if you ask me. Just a bit. It's currently airing right now. The anime is in its 3rd season, part 1, part 2, whatever. It's the Culling arc, or Culling Games series. But the Gege Akutami loves incorporating Buddhism. Some of the signs that some of the villains have, like Sukuna or whatnot, represents it. And this is specifically taken from one of the flashback arcs where it talks about the star plasma vessel and how even though a lot of people point to Gojo, who is the white-haired one in this case, he is speaking a phrase throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one. This is an interpretation of what Gautama Buddha said when he first emerged from his mother's womb. Now, can a baby speak? I don't know. You know, things get spun out of context and become a sort of a myth, but many sorts of interpretation, just this line alone, with the context of what happens in this arc, if you've seen it or watched it, you can understand the kind of critique that Gege is trying to tell in this way. But I think what's more interesting is his counterpart, who's the other main character of this arc, which is Geto, who dons this monk moniker or outfit at the end of the arc to kind of say that, oh, like I am, he literally takes a mic and starts saying some stuff and then becomes the character he is in the main storyline. So Gege is definitely showing that, you know, suffering happens every day. Are there really two paths? Geto in this arc has two paths and he picks one. He doesn't pick the middle one. And what is the outcome of that? And then the last one is Land of the Lustrous by Haruko Ichikawa. It focuses on Pure Land Buddhism in its most overt form, filled with Buddhism symbolisms. Pure Land as a whole is like the gems or whatnot. Those are the beings that are the main characters in this kind of way. He's cosplayed as one of the gems at one point of the story.
Yep.
And I am cosplayed as the teacher, Kongo Sensei. It's very similar to Geto, just the sash is a little different, but Haruko Ichikawa loves. She grew up and went to school accidentally in a Buddhist school. You know, she didn't even know that she was enrolling in a Buddhist school when she went to school, and she was like, oh, I'm learning a bunch of this stuff. And then she became a architectural design major at university. And then when she got a chance to do manga, she was like, okay, yeah, like I have this story. Let me talk about Buddhism in a kind of way. Whether she critiques it or is in favor of it or whatnot is not that important, but more so that it is tailored to Pure Land Buddhism and the sect of what I mentioned, how you are helpless on your own and you need someone to save you. Is that the right way of thinking for this type of Buddhism that she tries to embark? And throughout the entire story, the main character is very helpless, and even if they try to be helpful, they become helpless, and even if they gain power, they are helpless. But at the end, you know, things happen, you accept change, you don't accept change, you know, life goes on, whether it's a day, a month, a year, many years, and whatnot. So that's all I had at the end of it. We have a little under 10 minutes. If anyone has any specific questions, or if you want to talk about your favorite series and how Buddhism prevails in that way, yeah, go ahead.
Haru has two side characters, like a sort of like enemies to lovers, like bickering pair, where one is a Shinto priestess and the other is a Buddhist priest.
Okay.
And they make a lot of references, and I'm like, I don't understand that, and I like flip to the back where they explain
With the translation notes, yeah,
and
yeah.
then they say them, that's really funny actually.
And what's interesting is you don't even need to know the specific principles of Buddhism because it's very universal, right? So as long as you identify it, that's more than enough of like, oh, like I have an understanding, like I'm inversed in Japanese media of some kind of way, I'm gonna get a reference about like a monk or this phrase that you might have heard that it wasn't translated fully, so you don't even know what they're saying, but you're like, oh, like they've been saying this, every monk says this, what's going on, you know? But yeah, that's awesome to hear. Alrighty then. Yeah.
So you said you've been to the temple that Kyousogiga takes place in. Do they explicitly say which window is confusion, which one is enlightenment?
Yes, they do actually. Let me find that. They say that the square one is the window, and I'll go back to it. So they're saying that the square one is the window of confusion, and then the circular one is the window of enlightenment. Which, in the way that Rei Matsumoto shows, the woman that's sitting in the square one is attached to love and like is in love with the monk that is in the lake, and then the guy that's the monk is very like, you know, laissez-faire type of way. So I guess that's the kind of critique that's going on. With Kyousogiga as a whole, the monk draws his family in a kind of way and creates a parallel version of Kyoto that doesn't change. And that's what's set up in the first 5 minutes of the anime. So one of the big things with Buddhism is like, if everything is temporary, what would you do if there was a scenario where things were permanent as a whole? Like no one around you aged, no one like changed. Even if you broke something, it gets fixed immediately. You know, it just gets regenerated. Like what kind of world or what kind of interactions would you have with people around you?
Thank you.
Of course. Yes.
So what do you make of like a lot of anime have this concept that if you achieve emptiness or nothingness, you achieve like great power, like Ultra Instinct and Dragon Ball. Mm-hmm. I remember Toriko had something like this too, where you could kind of go like limp basically and be able to read attacks and whatnot.
Yeah. Or like sports anime in general is like, oh, like I cleared my mind and I can react like with instinct, like, and that's the only thing I can do. I mean, I'm not an athlete, so I don't know if that's actually true or whatnot, but yeah, go ahead.
No, that's kind of.
Oh, yeah. So that form.
Does that come from the Buddhist tradition, like the Zen tradition in specific, or?
I would not be surprised because of how many things sort of seep into just general Japanese culture through that Buddhism, Shintoism. Like I was living for a year and a half. All those festivals and such, people are not religious for the most part, honestly, and it's just habitual and sort of subconsciously seeps into this. I mean, obviously with Houseki no Kuni, a lot of that is subconscious references and things of that sort. Maybe some are intentional, but again, it's like Christianity in the West. You know, a lot of the things we don't think about sort of come into play, you know, Christmas, things of that sort. So many people celebrate that and such, so.
And I think specifically in like that training arc or training phase where like Goku gets thrown into like a chamber and like he comes out or whatnot, I think that's just a form of like the complete concentration or samadhi is the term that they use for it. So it might be like a visualization of that happening because Buddha didn't move for an extended amount of period and went through trials and tribulations, and a lot of like battle shonen or whatnot will depict it that way of like, oh, like I'm stuck in this place, I'm gonna train and overcome this like imaginary fight. Naruto has that in a kind of way with himself, so that's a form of Buddhism where you overcome the challenge yourself. Yes.
And Bleach also does that a lot with the them like with their swords
Mm-hmm.
and the manifestations of their swords within themselves.
Yeah, especially with Ichigo and the interaction he has with his sword and what. I haven't read the manga all the way, but I've watched it, so I think we're in the last arc or something. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm currently in the arc where he is like first starting to
go through changes. Yeah. So definitely, I think Bleach as a whole. I don't remember the origin behind it, but I think bleach is just a blanket state, right? It stains everything white. There's a lot of panels in the manga that are filled with just emptiness, and that speaks to the kind of way like this person might not have any attachment to the situation, to what they're feeling, and they carry on in the kind of way. So 100%. I mean, the garbs that they wear are not traditional in a kind of way, but it's characterized in the kind of way that Kubo does it, so 100%.
I think there is an interesting aspect of like, you know, as someone who doesn't know much about Buddhism, I'll watch something and think, oh, that's just from that show, and then I'll see it in another, because like, when I started Land of the Lustrous, I saw the Lunarians, and I sort of freaked out because I was like, wait, those are the things from The Tale of Princess Kaguya.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, no, they're actually from, you know.
Something else.
Yeah.
Specifically in like Land of the Lustrous' case, those Lunarians or whatnot evoke Hinduist priests, and they're imitating those to try to get the sensei to interact or react in a kind of way. So Ichikawa uses that in a very like superficial way. It was like, oh, like if I behave this way, can I get this reaction out of this person? In the terms of the Tale of Princess Kaguya, that's a Ghibli film. If you haven't seen that Ghibli film, that's my favorite one. It's beautiful. Yeah, very, very heartbreaking, 100%. And that's definitely tied with people that are from the moon. Maybe they're enlightened, maybe they're divine in a kind of way, and the kind of stuff that they do, like, can they live amongst humans? Can humans become that kind of way? So it plays around with that a lot, 100%. Yes?
And there is with Princess Kaguya another manga, Sakura Hime, which is a shoujo manga that's about like the granddaughter of Princess Kaguya.
Okay.
And her like fighting monsters in Heian, Japan.
Okay, interesting. I like that.
It's a fun like action shoujo from I think like the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think Inuyasha is another great example of that kind of way because she gets reincarnated or is a reincarnation, like the main character, of someone from the past. Is that a form of rebirth? Like, what is this reincarnation of a way? This person acts like their ancestor. Is it because they embody this type of soul of them? I don't think Buddhism really tailors itself to like the concept of a soul, and it's a little different than other religions, but yeah, there's definitely something there. 100%. We got one more minute, and then we're good to go. Any last minute questions? Yeah, go ahead.
What is your thoughts on the Walker piece that happened recently?
I know, that happened here. Yeah, I wasn't able to make it because I had work, but I think it's very momentous in a kind of like you're going through this little hurdle through snow, through hundreds of miles to make a statement of a kind of way. So, I mean, amazing.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you all for coming in to listen
Thank
today.
you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
You ever heard of Thanisaru Biku?
I have not.
I have never heard of that.
Him every morning, so I've been doing that for like every, like, you know, one or two Dharma talks like every day for the past 6 months. So I've learned a lot about Buddhism.
That's awesome.
Plus I've read Buddha.
Yeah.
I'm reading the actual, you know, Pali Canon now too.
Nice,
so
nice.
I'm trying to go pretty deep.
That's good. That's good. You know, do you see like any changes in your like day to day?
Absolutely, yeah. You just, you
100%.
know, you see what really matters in life, which is developing virtue, developing concentration,
Yeah.
and all actions, you know, around that are in support of the path.
100%.
Start to, you know, derive value and joy from being on the path rather than external circumstances. Even though I still derive a ton from external circumstances.
And there's no way around it in our day to day unless you're like completely detached from like internet or like other people.
Yeah,
right? It's just
yeah.
like not a reality, but like there's ways that you can find.
You can bring it in. You can live like a monk as a layperson.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
you want to go all the way, you gotta, you know.
You gotta shave that head,
to
like go to the temple.
So you have a question?
Yeah. So actually, I do a panel from time to time on death in anime and manga.
Oh, that's
which
perfect.
Goes through like a lot of this stuff. So
Yes.
thank you for,
No, of course. This is
really
this is my first panel, so like you know, like I did a little bit of research. I've like the stuff that I do on YouTube is all about Houseki no Kuni and Land of the Lustrous.
Do you have any
But
cards, perchance?
cards? No, but I can social media in a kind of way.
Yeah.
What is the cards? Is it a thing like the panels do?
No, some people have cards.
Oh, no, I do not have any business cards.
There's a YouTube
no.
channel.
QR code for my channel in the slide deck.
You know what? That's smart. But here, I can show you, and you can take a
What's
picture
something I
of
can
it.
take a picture of?
Yes.
There we go.
And then that's me on all social media. So if
Okay,
you find me on Discord,
it's
Instagram,
okay,
it's
nice.
all the same. Yeah, it's all the same.
Nice. Yeah, gotta.
But yes.
The thing I would recommend looking into is the Bhava Chakra.
Okay.
The concept of the many like different worlds. That
Yeah,
the
and like the
soul
different,
can go
like,
to.
yeah.
Because I drew a parallel there to Bleach with like the Waco Mundo being like both the hungry